Despite the progressive speed at which the government of President Tinubu has started off, some political critics are saying that there seems to be no sense of urgency on the part of the government on how to deal with escalating costs across the country. Some critics say that with unified exchange rates, all imports into the country are assessed using the new rates. And what it means is that government makes huge profits from these transactions while the consumers bear the cost. However, with the declaration of a state of emergency in food security, the actionable plans that addresses the current crisis is having a snail start. According to Dumebi Kachikwu, former presidential candidate of the opposition African Democratic Congress, ADC, the state of the nation seems to be in disarray over government policies. He joins us now from our Abuja studio. Good morning, Mr. Kachikwu, and welcome to the morning show.
Good morning, Ayo. Thanks for having me.
Well, Ayo just quoted you saying that the country is in disarray. But members of the APC would not agree with you. They will say that after all, the president is going to make available for a period of 6 months 8,000 naira to 12 million Nigerians, and that by extension about 60 million people will benefit. The same government has declared a state of emergency in the food sector and is promising to ensure food security. The lawmakers in the National Assembly, they have kept aside 70 billion for repairs of the environment and another 40 billion to buy themselves bulletproof vehicles. And you say the country is in disarray? And you say government is creating inflation and benefiting from inflation? Please, could you enlighten us further?
Dr. Abati, first of all, I didn't say the nation is in disarray. I believe that our president is in the phase, is in that phase, Namibi this phase, you know. So when people typically enter office, they can't believe they've entered office, and they go through this phase where they deal with hangers-on, friends and family, people coming around them to congratulate them. And because of that, they take their eyes off the ball. And in the case of Nigeria, because we are hemorrhaging, we are bleeding, it becomes difficult to understand how a president who's wanted this all his life can afford to act in a manner that suggests that he doesn't have this sense of urgency towards solving our problems. I personally expected that this president, in the first 2 weeks, he will have put out his cabinet list out there for Nigerians to start vetting these people. I expected to hear and see a lot more policy statements in the different areas that are pressing. We saw the removal of subsidy in petroleum. Whilst a lot of people, he campaigned on that, I campaigned on that, but I believe that Nigerians should not suffer for the failures of a few people or for the failure of government not to be able to manage the process of subsidy. Now, what we should have done is remove or suspend subsidy temporarily whilst putting in place a stronger, a more refined process that ensures that people don't abuse subsidy. I also see, like you just mentioned, what's happening with the cash transfers they're about to do. We saw the last government do that. We saw how it failed. We saw how it was abused. And I expect that this government will have come up with a much better plan. There are two schools of thought. People look at trickle-down economics, and people believe that, okay, if you give money to the lower class of the economy, that the money activates the economy or has a better multiplier effect on the economy. But in the case of Nigeria, 8,000 naira to how many million people does absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. And I don't understand how the president could have bought into this. Again, our president or any president can only be as good as his advisors. I don't know the people who are advising him, but I believe they've gotten it wrong. He's made some good steps in what he's trying to do in terms of unifying the exchange rate. But again, you can't take a step and take 2 steps forward and take 10 steps backward, like what I said about the exchange rate. If we see what's happening at the ports now, the government is now using the new exchange rate to assess all imports into the country. What this means is that we have escalated costs for every good that's coming to Nigeria. That triggers inflation. The government benefits from inflation, but the same government says they are fighting inflation. I expect that the government should have looked at that critically and said, what do we do with this window? Because that is what impacts on the economy, the first step into the economy. Well, again, we see agriculture when they said they are declaring a state of emergency into food security. But the actionable plans towards food security did not so much as address food security in the short term. Okay, so a lot of these things look like good sound bites, but if you drill down, they really take us nowhere where we should be. I'm hoping that if he puts in place his cabinet, we can start seeing more coherent, more sustainable plans, better plans that deal with our current situation in Nigeria today.
All right, Mr. Kachikwu, from what I hear you, one of the biggest mistakes the president has done so far is in his lack of appointments, or he's not yet making any appointments, particularly with regards to his ministerial cabinet. Is that what you're saying? And then second of it, in your Democracy Day speech and response to the president's Democracy Day speech, you had said that one of the big mistakes he made was that he didn't announce any palliative to cushion the effect of the fuel subsidy removal. You're not satisfied with the 8,000 naira given to 12 million households and hopefully reaching about 60 million Nigerians. If you were in his shoes, or perhaps you wanted to make recommendations or advise the president, what would have been a better palliative package for Nigerians who are, worst hit by food inflation, fuel subsidy removal, the shock of that? What would be your suggestion? So first of all is that one of the big things you're saying about the president is that he hasn't made appointments to ministerial cabinet. And then second part of that would be, what would be a better way to have addressed the palliative needs of Nigerians?
Oh, great. For someone who wants to hit the ground running, he ought to have had his cabinet list ready from day one. He's not done this, and a lot of people are disappointed. I am also disappointed that he's not done this. Granted that the Constitution gives him a latitude of, I think, about 60 days or so. So we're waiting. But for someone who understands that this country is bleeding, he ought to have done this from day one. If we look at the issue of palliatives, palliatives should not have come after the removal of subsidy. Palliatives should have been planned, should have been factored in if you're going to remove subsidy. Now, whatever palliatives you want to put in place, Nigerians for the last 1 or 2 months now, almost going to 2 months now, are already suffering the effects of removal of subsidy. So if you are going to put in place palliatives now, understand that Nigerians are already suffering. Are you going to put in place palliatives of 8,000 naira for what, 8 million households, you said? 8,000 naira. In America, the state of New York, minimum wage for 1 hour is about $13 for 1 hour. In Nigeria, we are saying to ourselves that the poor are poor and their status quo is poor. 8,000 naira is what they are worth. No, I believe that that money should be put into infrastructure that affects everyone. I believe that what this government ought to do is start bringing in mass transit systems. I believe that this government ought to say our structured or our formal transporters should use NMPC stations and buy fuel at a subsidized price. But again, they have to put in place a very strong, stringent process to ensure that nobody abuses that system. I believe that if we were to take this money that they are about to abuse now into level 1 hospitals in each geopolitical zone, it will benefit the masses more. I don't see how 8,000 naira a month, 8,000 naira a month will benefit anyone. That money should go into something that all Nigerians can benefit from. If it's taking broadband to the rural areas or to nooks and crannies of Nigeria, if it's ensuring that our transmission system gets everywhere, if it's ensuring that we generate more power, if it's ensuring that we have better roads, we put that money into something that works. And like Dr. Abati mentioned earlier, think again. This government in less than 2 months is allowing a situation where our senators, our parliament, 70 billion naira. And I just read this morning how the spokesperson of the Senate was trying to justify that this money is going to be used to repair the building and give them better chairs and what have you. Please, I'll have you go back and look at how much they budget for that same building every year for the past 18 or 20 years. It's a shame.
Okay.
Again, if this president allows this, it will signpost to all Nigerians the direction he wants to take, take this country. I don't expect him to allow this to stand.
Mr. Dumebi Kachikwu, I also want you to talk as regards that 70 billion. Another part we have also heard is an attempt to also import a lot of cars, bulletproof cars for principal officer, thereby impoverishing the Nigerian economy when we have local car producers and taking the money to upgrade the Japanese economy. I mean, I want you to speak to that mindset of the fact that we are so disillusioned as a people that we don't even like to invest in our brothers here making same cars. And what stops our government from saying all government used cars must be cars made in Nigeria? We did it before in this country, Dumebi. We did it when federal government had partnership with Peugeot Automobile of Nigeria. Every government car you saw on the road were Peugeots. What stops us from doing that now? I want you to speak through all of that.
Okay, again, the first question should be, why should we be buying vehicles for them in the first place? They should be given a transport allowance that takes into consideration the wages of these people. That's the first thing. No, government should not be buying vehicles for these people. Number two, I wonder what happened to parties like mine, the Labour Party, and other smaller parties when they were discussing this. We expected these people to know and to do better. They all were part of this. I have not seen any voice of dissent. Again, we must come to a point where, as a people, we need to set an agenda for our parliament, for our government, that says enough is enough. We can no longer allow this charade that continues in the name of governance. How do you justify that kind of expense for cars in an overburdened economy in a country that we are borrowing from people? The people who we are borrowing from are watching you spend humongous amounts to import vehicles. And they're saying, are these guys serious? They're looking at us and wondering, what kind of clowns are these? And these guys are acting like clowns. How do you borrow money from people to buy vehicles, bulletproof vehicles, and all manners of SUVs for yourself? You are borrowing money. Your economy is suffering. Your economy is suffering, and you are spending that kind of money to buy vehicles. What's the budget for the education sector this year? What's the budget for the health sector? Look at how much a few people are spending on themselves, and they make all manner of excuses to justify this. But the Nigerian people, the onus is on the Nigerian people, the media, to rise up as a whole and put a stop to this. We must not just end up discussing this in our morning shows or in different shows. No, we must come out as a people and say, this will not happen. This will not happen. We must lead a charge to National Assembly and say, this will not happen. Never again. This will never happen anymore. It's ridiculous.
It's good you yourself refer to the fact that the president has 60 days window, part of the fifth alteration of the 1999 Constitution. So he still has till the end of July to announce his cabinet list. So, but you want it earlier. You know, it used to be, the initial proposal was 30 days before, the lawmakers settled for 60 days. So he still has till the end of July. But what kind of cabinet would you like to see?
Well, I will expect a cabinet that's not made up of geriatrics. When we see some of the lists floating around and we see names like Governor Wike and Ganduje and all those people, I really hope that this is not what is going to really happen. They've served this country.
It's not a geriatric, though.
It's not a geriatric, but I'm saying they are political geriatrics. They are people who've been in public service forever, okay? And we have people who are actual geriatrics who should not make that list at all. We don't expect this president to continue to carry dead wood to try and solve the problems of this country. The same people who have not done anything for the last 20, 30 years, we don't expect those same people to solve the problems that we have today. So who do I expect to be on that list? I expect people who have a worldview that understands what the world is saying today. We have a world that is depending on the youths. We have modern technology, AI, and what have you, service-based industries that are youth-dependent. If you are looking at that, do you expect geriatrics or people who cannot even do or write a common proposal or understand how Microsoft Word works and what have you, to come and start putting in place policies that will help our youths to leapfrog other nations? Absolutely not. Our president, God has put him there, and as I said that the president is there, but the fact that he's there at that age does not mean that those who serve with him should also be people of that age or people who have been in politics for donkey years. I expect that he will bring people who have solid thinking caps on, people who understand what it means to work under pressure, who understand the sectors critically, who are sector experts. We don't want to bring people who are going to struggle to understand basic memos that the PAMSEC or ministry people bring to them. We expect that he will have people, younger people, a younger crowd, men and women of character, integrity, and intellect who can deliver for Nigerians. Government must stop being about, it's my turn, it's our turn. It's at our turn to share the national cake or to share the spoils of war, which is what we're seeing everywhere, which is the attitude we see everywhere. It should be about people who are called to service. All Nigerians must start determining how this works. We must not allow a situation where the president puts in place a list and within 2 weeks or 3 weeks, the Senate has approved this list, and then we'll have these people mismanage our country, our economy, and what God has given to us. No.
All right, well, thank you, Mr. Kachikwu. Very quickly, would you be willing to work with the president if he offered you a position? Would you be willing to work with his government?
No, I've said this time and time again. Whilst I support the president, believing that he's the president for Nigeria, and that if the president does well, I will do better as a Nigerian, I believe that it's not my place to serve now. I believe that I will better help my government and my people by being a voice for the people from outside. I don't subscribe to the notion that smaller parties like mine, that people should run for office from smaller parties just knowing that they might not win or they will not win, just to be compensated with a board appointment or a ministerial appointment or what have you. I believe that we must continue to be a viable, a strong opposition. We must be the voice of the people.
Well, thank you very much for your time this morning, speaking to us on the state of the nation, Mr. Dumebi Kachikwu.